Hi everyone, this is Cindy GL teacher from Lab 204 discussing about the scope of Philippine history and government in elementary grades. The previous lesson highlights social studies as an interdisciplinary and integrative discipline. It provides significant input on the nature and importance of social studies' integrative character, which enriches its content and processes, allowing the intended learners to become proficient in the essential standard and competencies required of them to manifest. This lesson is a continuation of the preceding topic, focusing on the nature, intention, and the scope of the elementary social studies curriculum. It is hoped that after this lesson, significant insight will be acquired by education students as they face the challenges of teaching elementary students. The K-12 Araling Panlipunan or Social Studies, as mentioned in Lesson 1, intends to develop critical, reflective, responsible, productive, nature-loving, nationalist, and humane citizens rooted in his or her identity as a Filipino, yet manifest the value and skills of a global citizen. The said aspiration manifests in the standards prescribed in the curriculum. Basic ideas and concepts relative to the development of civic competence, culturally identity, nationalism, and citizenship, among others, are introduced and explained in elementary social studies through the secondary social studies curriculum, but a continuation of the elementary curriculum and, up to a certain extent, inseparable from the latter. There are significant differences nonetheless. This is evident in the complexity and difficulty of the standards, for example, content, performance, and learning competencies, and the other content focus on each grade level. So today, we are going to discuss a bit of a scope of history and how the government run in the Philippines. And before we start, let us answer this question. Why do we need to study the scope of history and government? Studying history helps us to understand how events in the past made things the way they are today. With lessons from the past, we are not only learn about ourselves and how we came to be, but also develop the ability to avoid mistakes and create better paths for our society. Mantayan sa pagkatuto na ipamamalas ang pag-unawa at pagpapahalaga sa pagkabuo ng kapuluan ng Pilipinas at mga sinaunang lipunan hanggang sa malalaking pagbabagong pang-ekonomiya at ang implikasyon nito sa lipunan simula ng ika-19 na siglo gamit ang batayang konsepto katulad ng kahalagang pangkasaysayan o historical significance. Patuloy at pagbabago, ugnayang sanhi at epekto tungo sa paglinang ng isang batang mamamayang mapanuri, mapagmuni, responsable, produktibo, makakalikasan, makatao, magamansa, at may pagpapahalaga sa mga usapin sa lipunan sa nakaraan at kasalukuyan tungo sa pagpanday ng maunlad na kinabukasan para sa bansa. Over. Grade 5 Social Studies requires learners to manifest understanding and appreciation of the formation of the Philippine archipelago, including the development of Philippine civilization until the 19th century. It contents examine the following. First is the emergence of Philippine civilization. Early history. The Philippine archipelago was settled at least 30,000 years ago, when migrations from the Indonesian archipelago and elsewhere are believed to have occurred. Additional migration took place over the next millennia. Over time, social and political organization developed and evolved in the widely scattered islands. The basic unit of settlement was the barangay, a Malay word for boat that came to be used to denote the communal settlement. The kinship group was led by dato or chief, and within the barangay, there were broad social division consisting of nobles, freemen, and dependent of landless, agricultural workers, and slaves. Over the centuries, Indo-Malay migrants were joined the Chinese traders. A major development in the early period was the introduction of Islam to the Philippines by traders and proselytizer from the Indonesian island. By AD 1500s, Islam had been established in the Sulu archipelago and spread from there to Mindanao. It reached the Manila area by 1565. In the midst of the introduction of Islam came the introduction of Christianity with the arrival of the Spanish control. Ferdinand Magellan was the first European recorded to have landed in the Philippines. He arrived in March 1521 during his circumnavigation of the globe. He claimed land for the King of Spain was killed by the local chief. Following several more Spanish expeditions, the first permanent settlement was established in Cebu in 1565. After defeating a local Muslim ruler, the Spanish set up their capital at Manila in 1571, and they named their new colony after the King Philip of the Spain. Doing so, the Spanish sought to acquire a share in the lucrative spice trade, develop better contacts with China and Japan, and gain converts to Christianity. Only the third objective was eventually realized, as the other Spanish colonies, church and states, become inseparable link in carrying out Spanish objectives. Several Roman Catholic religious order were assigned the responsibility of Christianizing the local population. The civil administration built upon the traditional village organization and used traditional local leaders to rule indirectly for Spain. Through this effort, a new cultural community was developed, but Muslim, known as Moros by the Spain and upland tribal people, remained detached and alienated. Trade in the Philippines centered around the Manila Galleon, which sailed from Acapulco in the west coast of Mexico, New Spain with shipment of silver bullion and minted coin that were exchanged for return cargoes of Chinese goods, mainly silks, textiles, and porcelain. There was no direct trade with Spain and little exploitation of indigenous natural resources. Most investment was in the galleon trade, but as this trade thrived, another unwelcome element was introduced, sojourning Chinese entrepreneurs and service providers. The Philippines is a culture in which East meets West. The Filipino people have a distinct Asian background with a strong Western tradition. The modern Filipino culture developed through the influence of the Chinese traders, Spanish conquistador, and American rulers. Filipino people tend to be very hospitable, especially to Western visitors. Number one, because of their strong ties to Spanish culture. Filipino are emotional and passionate about life in a way that seems more Latin than Asian. This is easily seen in the works of contemporary artists such as Rudy Herrera in the painting of Unahan sa Duluhan. For Filipinos, family is the basic and most important aspect of the Filipino culture. Divorce is prohibited and annulments are rare. The family is the safety net for individuals, especially older people. During difficult economic times, children will not often stay with their parents into adulthood. only leaving when they get married. Political and business ties are often influenced by family relationships. The two traits of the many foreign visitor often have a difficult time to understand are pakikisama and utang na loob. Pakikisama really means getting along and requires individuals overlook slight improprieties or discretion for the sake of preserving peace with the family, personal, or business relationship. Then next is utang na loob, refers to the custom of paying back one favor with another. These traits emphasize the importance that Filipino people place on maintaining their pleasant interpersonal relationship and putting the needs of the group ahead of the individual. In the Philippines, people greet each other with a handshake or a smile or raise their eyebrows can make hello or yes. Someone can be summoned with a downward wave on the head. Philippines is located between the South China Sea and Philippine Sea. The Republic of the Philippines contains the diverse set of landscape, language, cultures. Various countries such as Spain, China, and United States have interacted with the impacted Filipino culture. A sense of national identity, a pride emerged out of struggles for Philippines' independence. However, loyalties remain foremost with one's family and place of birth. Key values such fellowship, respect, and acceptance are found throughout the culture, with many Filipinos displaying a warming and hospitable demeanor. The geographic and linguistic diversity. The Philippines is made up of over 7,000 islands, of which approximately 2,000 are inhabited. The islands are categorized into three main clusters, namely Luzon in the north, Visayas in the center, and Mindanao in the south. The island cluster vary in the terms of the cuisine, language, and culture. One of the main distinctions is in respect to religion. The population in the northern islands generally identify as Christian, while it is much more common to find those who identify as Muslim in the southern parts of the Philippines. The country is also linguistically diverse, with eight major dialects and over 170 languages spoken throughout the inhabited island. The official language of the Philippines is Filipino, which is mainly Tagalog, the dialect from central and southern Luzon, combined with the words from various other languages. For example, English is widely spoken throughout the Philippines, and it is the common to hear Filipinos use a mixture of English and Tagalog, known informally as Taglish. In everyday conversation, depending on their location, Filipinos may not speak the national language as way to retain their local identities. Many Filipinos will often choose to speak their regional language and dialect. Indeed, it is common to find Filipinos who are from different parts of the Philippines conversing in English rather than Filipino. The national and local identity. Given the diversity of the Philippines, the unifying elements of Filipino culture is a complex matter. A sense of national identity emerged out of the long-standing struggle for independence. In contemporary Philippines, many Filipinos are acutely aware of the colonial history of their country. For example, Jose Rizal, a national hero in the struggle for Philippines independence, is highly revered and well-known figure who many Filipinos look up to as a role model of the virtuous person. However, the sense of national identity is fragile, with loyalty residing firstly to their kin group, province, or municipality. The Philippines is a collectivist society and individuals tend to understand themselves as a part of a group. For Filipinos, the interests of the collective often override in the interest of the individual. Filipinos generally feel a strong sense of pride towards their group and will celebrate their pride through sharing stories or facts about their family, barangay, or village or town. The long history of contact with Spain and the United States continues to have a significant impact on the Filipino identity. One example is the influence of American standard of beauty, which are often measured in the Philippines by possessing the Western physical traits, such as fair skin and curly hair. Another example in the prominence of Christian ideology since the introduction of Christianity by the Spanish. Indeed, when compared to the other countries in the Asian continent, the Philippines has one of the highest Christian population. Another is the social interaction and social hierarchy in the Philippines is determined according to the age and social status. Nearly all Filipinos are taught from an early age about the importance of the underpinning social hierarchy. Gestures, terms of address, and communication styles vary depending on who one interacts with and their relative position in the social hierarchy. For example, it is expected that if you are referring to someone who is older than you but within the same generation, you use the terms kuya for males and ate for females. Failing to do so is considered highly disrespectful and lack of acknowledgement of the established hierarchy. Kapwa, fellowship or togetherness, is a core value that explains Filipino interpersonal behavior. The term generally refers to a shared identity whereby Filipinos band together despite differences in wealth or social status. Kapwa is related to the collectivistic nature of Filipino society. It is believed that what is good for one person will be good for the collective and ought to be shared with fellow people. Being branded as not having any kapwa in an insult as it implies that the person does not belong to a community. The next is warm and accepted. Filipinos are usually warm and friendly people who enjoy conversing with those around them. It is common to find strangers engaging in a conversation or sharing stories to family, friends, or foreigners about their hometown, family, or country. Filipinos are often expressive and sentimental while maintaining a light-hearted demeanor. For example, the word hugot, to pull out, is often used to describe someone drawing out deep sentimental memories or experiences. Indeed, Filipinos are often willing to share stories of their past that may be considered personal. To sum it up, the Philippines is the country full of love, light, laughter, and food, with a slight influence from America and some parts of the Asia. The culture of the Philippines is mainly a blend of Filipino and Spanish Catholic traditions. They have a good eye for passion and art. Next, family oriented life. The Filipinos take pride in their families. Their daily life revolves around close and extended family. Parents, grandparents, uncles and aunts, cousins, and very close friends are all in integral parts, moving down to the third and fourth generation as well. All the extended family gathers for a significant event of their commune, marriage, circumcision. For Muslim Filipinos, baptisms for Catholics Filipinos, and etc. Godparents and Catholic communities are also a central part of the child upbringing. The families celebrate festivals and holidays together, emphasizing spending more and more time with each other. Filipino values. Society norms and values are of utmost importance in the Philippines. Filipino values are primarily rooted in the relationship and societal obligations. Children are taught to be respectful from the early stages of their life by introducing phrases po and opo when they're talking to adults. Societal and group acceptance is very much sought after in Filipino society. Attending to what people think and respecting everyone is a vital part of the Filipino values. They also upholding optimism, friendliness, kindness, and spirituality high in this regard. A common act of respect toward elders is pagbabano, which is the act of raising the back of their elders' hands to their foreheads for accepting their blessing. All these values are centered around social harmony, positive relationship, and group acceptance in Filipino society. Religion. Filipinos take pride in their religion, while most Filipinos practice Christianity as their religion. Islam and other indigenous faiths are also seen in the movement. Their religious spirit can be witnessed during festivals such as Ati-Atihan, Kaamulan, Panangbenga, and the famous 3-month celebration for Christmas. Jesus' birthday is the massive fiesta in the Philippines. The celebration starts in October with decoration and music and peak in December with the carols, mass, and midnight feasting. Other than festivals, Filipinos display their religion symbols outside their houses and go to church or mosques at least once a week. The Philippines is accepting for all religion and every festivals or holidays is celebrated with good vibes and energy. In addition, the Philippines was very lucky because our country is rich in natural resources, and that is the reason why many foreign countries had colonized our country. Spain is one of the foreign countries that colonized our country for more than 300 years. They are the reason why Filipinos experience suffered hardship, persecution, and etc. The Spanish colonization in the Philippines lead us to make some question in our mind on how these Filipinos survived, even though they experienced the inhumanity of the Spaniards. We can say that Filipino during the time of the Spanish was so very poor and petty because the Spaniard treated the Filipino people not as human being but as their slave. They abused the Filipino. The lives of the Filipino during the Spanish colonization was very difficult. They never experienced the word freedom. But even though there are many negative things that the Spaniard given to the Filipinos, but there are still positive contribution that the Spanish government given to us. And one of these is the positive contribution is their culture. The Spanish people introduced us what their culture like. They introduced us their Latin alphabet and the art of painting, the appearance of theocratic literature, the persistence of folks and colonial arts and Hispanic music and Western musical instrument. This contribution brought such good things in the Filipinos because these things help us to improve our culture and ourselves. The Spanish government also helped the Filipino in their educational situation. The Spanish teach Filipino children not only about academics but also religious things. They teach them on how to become a good, faring person, and also the Spanish government funded different schools. There were primary, secondary, tertiary schools that the Spanish built in our country, like the Ateneo, the University of Santo Tomas or UST, the Santa Isabel of many and many more. We are very thankful because those schools were still teaching the Filipino people until now. And also the Spanish government transformed the Filipino people society socially, like the Hispanization of Filipino surname. Also, the Spanish introduced the Filipino to use the stone in building construction so that the bahay kubo was transformed into bahay na bato. with the balcony, and with and we think that was the style of some houses today. And they also changed the model of Filipino dressing. The Spanish introduced the wearing Western coat and trousers, or Americana, which replaced their traditional jacket and bahag for men. Also encouraged the Filipino men to stop using the putong and instead wore hats, and they can even started wearing slippers and shoes instead of going around barefoot. And for women, they started using saya and kamisa, replacing their traditional sarong. The women also learned to use manton de Manila or shawls and handkerchief. And also, like men, the women started using slippers and shoes. The Spanish also influenced us to celebrate religious feasts honoring patron saints because of this is one of the consequence for being converted into the Catholicism. The Spanish changed the lives of Filipino, even though the Spanish was inhumanity, but the Filipino was still lucky because the Spanish people exerted effort to implement our country by sharing us the way they're living, and those things contributed a lot to us Filipino.